Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to day 11 or episode 11, if you will, of Diddy or Didn't He. I am Pugs Moran. We do this every night, Monday through Friday, when the Diddy trial is in session, and we try and bring you a recap, a little bit of a nutshell is what occurred there in the Manhattan courtroom today. We've been doing it every day for 11 days, and I'm here to tell you, day 11. The second consecutive day in a row where I believe the prosecution has finally begun to make some headway on their I've been saying since the beginning that I think they overcharged this guy, that I don't know that they have the horses to exactly get a jury to see him as this global crime lord, this Kaiser Soze from Usual Suspects, if you will. I think that, we've heard over the first 10 days and 11 days heading into today, we've heard endless examples and evidence of him being a criminal in any number of other regards: drugs, prostitution, domestic abuse, domestic violence, violence in general, menacing with a handgun. I mean, we've heard just endless examples of that. We've even seen the defense cop to much of that. And why are they doing that? They're doing it because that's not what Diddy's being charged with. They are freely admitting to all of these other things and at the same time saying, yeah, he did all of this stuff. He's a jerk off, but you know what? He's not a crime lord. He's not this bigger than life guy who you're trying to get to spend the rest of his life in prison. It's been the reason from night one that I've been saying this feels like an overcharging. And for the first 9 days, the defense was winning. I had it 9-0. 9 days in a row, I felt that the defense did a better job than the prosecution. Then came yesterday. Yesterday was a bit of a sea change. We saw the prosecution begin to tie together some of the things that we'd heard in the first couple of weeks. Things that in the first couple of weeks of testimony, I sat here every night and I told you that what we were hearing wasn't so much evidence of a global crime lord, but just the ritualistic humiliation of somebody, because that's what it felt like. The first couple of weeks was just Diddy being dragged for his weird sexual peccadillos, his drug use, his, bravado, his narcissism. It was all just a ritualistic takedown, a humiliation of this man. Not a single point was made to the argument that he is, in fact, what the prosecution says, a global crime lord. Excuse me. Now, I think we have a reason for why it played out this way and why in the last couple of nights I've started to go, oh, I see what the prosecution was doing there. I see what Emily Johnson, lead prosecutor, had in mind. Unfortunately, the way this trial has played out is we hit the ground running with somebody who in any other trial would have been, excuse me. We record live to tape. We don't edit. So if I'm going to sneeze, I'm going to sneeze. I actually recorded 7 minutes of Diddy part 1 a couple of minutes ago, but I had to stop it because I fell into a hiccup fit. Oh my God. And if you listen to my daily talk show, I do a daily stream every day around about noon. It's current events, it's hot topics, it's lifestyle talk, it's talk radio for normal Americans. What does that mean? Well, it means we don't do politics. I don't care how you voted. I'm not talking about the guy in the White House. I'm not talking about the guy that was in the White House. We ain't doing none of that nonsense. We're normal people and we talk about normal stuff. That we do that every day. The Rant with me, Pugs Moran, right here on Radio Misfits, radiomisfits.com. Kind of lost my train of thought. Anyway, if you listen to The Rant, then you know that I sometimes have these hiccup fits. Well, we had one of those. All right, so back to the story. So back to what's been happening. So here's what I think I figured out. They rushed a lot of the freak off details. They rushed that. They front loaded that with this trial. The first couple of weeks was all about, Diddy and what he gets into and how he gets off and all these humiliating things. And it didn't really seem to be going anywhere other than, as I say, to humiliate this guy. And I'm starting to think now that that was just a result of Cassie being pregnant. They started Cassie early. They had to get her on. They had to get her testimony on because imagine Imagine that, God forbid, and we have some breaking news on this subject, so I'll share that with you in a moment. But God forbid there was a complication. Pregnancies are very difficult. God forbid, she's scheduled to testify and then she goes into labor. And then, again, something terrible occurs. She's in the hospital. She's bedridden. They needed to get her on and off the stand before the baby came. Okay. So knowing that, maybe it wasn't the best placement to have Cassie there that early. Because as I said, I took it as, they're just humiliating this guy. This has nothing to do with anything. But again, now understanding Cassie was about to burst at any moment. You got to get her on. Maybe that's why everything seemed a bit disjointed from the prosecution side, at least as I've interpreted it for the first 9 days of the trial. Well, we now have a reason. Breaking news didn't occur inside the courtroom, but happened just about a mile away in a Manhattan hospital. Cassie gave birth. Cassie has given birth. Healthy baby boy. Mother and new son are doing fine. And there you have it. So, they had the reason that she was there so early is because they were afraid that there could be you get a pregnant woman. This stuff is serious. So you never know. Anyway, she had a boy, which, by the way, I was saying today on The Rant, my daily live stream where I do talk radio. I was saying today that it couldn't have been a girl. Would have been better if it was a girl, right? I mean, this kid's going to be 12 years old, and he's going to Google search what was going on in the world the week that he was born. And he's going to read all kinds of stuff about his mom. He's going to read all kinds of stuff that maybe a girl would be able to process better than a son. But that's where we are. Congratulations to Cassie and Alex and the whole family there. They seem like... I was going to say they seem like nice people, but Cassie does not seem like a nice person. I'm sorry, she doesn't seem like a nice person. Cassie seems like a very attractive woman who I can look at and go, man, she's hot. But she does not seem like a nice person. She seems catty. She seems narcissistic. She seems like she's got a chip on her shoulder. Anyway, she's a new mom, so we're not going to get into that stuff. Cassie has not been painted very well. Even as we'll learn today, even among people who are now testifying and tying the prosecution's charges, tying them all together, even these people who are sitting down, they're not putting Cassie in the absolute best light. So we'll get into all of that. The big news, though, that happened outside of the courtroom is that Cassie gave birth. Cassie gave birth to her son, a new boy. So congratulations to them. Today, day 11, we heard from Los Angeles police officer Christopher Ignatio. He was a dude who showed up to investigate the Kid Cudi home break-in that we covered last week. Kid Cudi is another hip-hop star. He was dating Cassie at a period of time where Cassie and Diddy were on a break, I guess is what we're calling it. Cudi says that he thought that they were completely broken up. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten involved with Cassie. He was, But anyway, Diddy finds out that Cudi and Cassie are a thing. Why? Well, because I think Cassie told Diddy, but whatever. We'll find out more about that. Cassie calls Cudi and says, Diddy knows about us and he's on his way over to your house. So Cudi gets the hell out of his house. He doesn't want any of that. So he goes to a hotel and he calls Cassie. He says, Cassie, come to the hotel. And while Cassie and Cudi are holed up at the hotel, Diddy is basically inside Cudi's house. Where is he? Where is he? So we heard about that last week. Cudi called the police, filed a police report, home break-in, that whole thing. So today on the stand, we heard from police officer Christopher Ignatio, who was the responding officer for the break-in. We also heard from arson investigator with the Los Angeles Police Department, Lance Jimenez. Lance Jimenez is the arson investigator who filed the report after Kid Cudi's car, his Porsche, was firebombed. It's another story. See, this is what I mean about the last couple of days. We're starting to tie together these wild stories that just seemed like rando crazy stories from Diddy's life. They're starting to tie them together into a pattern of the way this guy did business. And that's why I've said the last couple of days were pretty good. So we'll go through what arson investigator Lance Jimenez said. And then the big star of the day was celebrity stylist Deonte Nash. Deonte Nash also took the stand. Deonte is going to be cross-examined tomorrow, but he gave a whole lot of stuff there, a whole lot of new information, and Deonte did a lot to tie together some of the craziness that we'd heard about Diddy's life in the previous couple of weeks. So let's get, hold on. All right, so let's get started here. Let's see. Let's cover some things. Yesterday, one thing we didn't mention, Jay-Z. We're keeping track of the celebrities who get name dropped. Jay-Z got name dropped yesterday, and we failed to mention it. I thought it was important. This was Capricorn Clark's testimony. She was one of Diddy's former assistants. She was on the stand the entire day yesterday, and she told us a whole lot of stuff. Yesterday, Clark testified about a conversation in which she warned Cassie Ventura to, quote, move away from Combs, who had physically been abusing her for years. So get it? So yesterday on the stand, we've got Capricorn Clark telling a story about how I went to Cassie once. I told her, girl, you got to move on from him. He's beating you up. You got to get out of here. So Capricorn Clark, the personal assistant to Diddy, is advising Cassie to get the hell away from him. Here's a direct examination. You told Cassie, quote, you should move away from him and date other people, right? Is that not what you told her? Said Combs lawyer Mark Agnafilo. So Mark Agnafilo said, oh, okay, so about this thing. So you told her that she should leave Combs. You said that this was in cross-examination. Remember, this is Capricorn Clark. She is a prosecution witness. She is supposed to only do good things for the prosecution. Mark Agnafilo, the defense lead, he cross-examines her and he says, you were like advising her to leave Diddy, right? And first of all, what does this do? Well, it establishes that not everybody in Diddy's universe thought that Cassie was a prisoner. Not everybody. It establishes now here you've got a witness for the prosecution who is now being cross-examined by the defense and laying out there that just, regular everyday people in Diddy's life thought that Cassie could leave at any time. So for all the good that she did earlier in her testimony for the prosecution, I think that was big. I think that just put it out there to the jury. Oh, here's another person who works for Diddy who didn't see Cassie as a prisoner, but saw her as somebody who could just leave whenever she wanted. So all right, let's get back to this exchange between Capricorn Clark and Cassie from yesterday. Clark testified about a conversation in which she warned Ventura to move away from Combs. You told Cassie you should move away from him and date other people, right? Combs lawyer Mark Agnafilo asked Clark. And she said to you, so Cassie's response to that was, Jay-Z was already taken. Who would I date? Okay, so why is this also damaging and why I wanted to talk about it from yesterday? Because we skipped over it yesterday. Once again, this is Capricorn Clark. She is a prosecution witness. She is supposed to be doing good things for Cassie's case. Here, you have her in cross-examination with Diddy's defense team, not only suggesting that she didn't think Cassie was a prisoner and could just break up with him whenever she wanted, but now you're also hearing a side of Cassie that is a bit of a climber, that is a bit of a social climber. She says, you need to leave Diddy, to which Cassie responds, well, who would I leave him for? Jay-Z's already taken. Like Cassie is only for a specific kind of person. I'm telling you, these things, they're little asides and they're little things that the jury hears. They are creating a picture of who the average person on the jury thinks that Cassie is when she's walking down the street. And it's not the person that we see getting ragdolled. That person in the video of the Hotel Intercontinental, we gave all of our empathy to. We gave all of our compassion to. That is, we projected all of these things onto that person who's being ragdolled. She's innocent. She's virtuous. She's beautiful. She's kind. She's sweet. She loves puppies. All of that. We projected that shit. Yes, we saw her being treated the way no woman should ever be treated. We saw that. And that, if that was it alone, put them in jail. This court case is 2 days long, but that's not what they're going after him for. And because of this, we're starting to now see the gray areas of Cassie be colored in by people. She's a bit of a narcissist. She's a bit of a mean girl. She's kind of stuck up. That's what we're learning about Cassie. But look at her. What did you think? Did you think she was going to be the innocent cheerleader you grew up living next door to? This is a girl who was a seductress songstress for Bad Boy Records, okay? She's not Dorothy in the Land of Oz. We need to move off of that. Now, that doesn't mean that she wasn't a victim and that she doesn't deserve justice. We'll figure out what all of that looks like and what that means over the course of the next few weeks. But the idea that we projected all of these ideas that she was all of our little sister, that's starting to look a bit suspect. Starting to look like maybe Cassie has ulterior motives of her own, and that maybe she was with Diddy, not because she was in love or not because, more importantly, she was a prisoner, but because she wanted him to make her a star. And I think the defense has been pretty good over the first 11 days of making that sort of their core contention about who Cassie is. Is it going to be enough? I don't know. All right. So what else? So that was yesterday. Let's see here. You told Cassie you should move away from him and date other people, right? And she said to you that Jay-Z was taken. So who would she date? Is that true? To which Capricorn Clark said, yes, that is true. That is what she said. All right, let's move to today. Los Angeles police officer Christopher Ignatio, who responded to the Kid Cudi home break-in, he took the stand. He wasn't on for a very long time. Ignatius gave testimony about seeing a black Escalade near Kid Cudi's house. We know that Diddy was rolling around in a black Escalade. So this is a police officer who responded to the home break-in, who did make a note that he saw a suspicious black Escalade hanging around. Now, was that Diddy and his crew just watching, these idiot criminals always return to the scene? I don't know, but it was interesting. It was an interesting piece of testimony that Ignatio gave right off the bat today. It says here, this was on December 6th. It was the same day that the Combs allegedly broke into Cudi's home in West Hollywood. Officer Ignatio said that when Kid Cudi, whose real name is Scott Mescudi, arrived back at his home, they went inside together, and that's where a trespass report was filed. That's it. He was just in and out. All he served was that, yes, there was a break-in. Yes, there was a police report. And, oh, by the way, I did make a note in my notes here that there was a weird black Escalade hanging around. All right, so see, they're trying to tie that together. I thought that was kind of a win. Next up, we had Lance Jimenez. He's Los Angeles Fire Department arson investigator. Investigator Jimenez told juries the arson attack on Kid Cudi's Porsche convertible was, quote, targeted with a Molotov cocktail made with a malt liquor bottle and a designer handkerchief. Okay, so that's interesting. Designer handkerchief. Targeted, definitely targeted, not an accident. It's not I don't think that anybody thought that Kid Cudi's Porsche being firebombed with a Molotov cocktail was an accident. Somebody took a knife, they ripped open his rag top. He's got a rag top convertible. They ripped open his rag top and then they dropped a Molotov cocktail in there. A Molotov cocktail is a makeshift bomb. It's typically a glass bottle filled with gasoline and then some kind of a rag on the end. You light the rag, and as the rag burns, it'll eventually get to the gasoline and the whole thing will explode. There you have it, kids. Anarchist cookbook coming at you. How to make a Molotov cocktail. So the Molotov cocktail was a 40 bottle. It's, I mean, how about just a milk bottle? How about just something nondescript? How about like it's a Coke bottle? It's got to be a 40. You got us just straight from the beginning. You got to get us thinking, it's a black guy. It's a black guy that definitely, like, we can narrow it down to a young black guy. 40, please. But then they were even dumber. So the wick, if you will, the cloth that you typically use, that you will light on fire in a Molotov cocktail. Apparently, in this case, arson investigator Lance Jimenez mentioned it was a fancy-ass silk handkerchief. It was like a super expensive, like the kind of thing that maybe, I don't know, a dumb guy with $1 billion might waste his money on. I mean, so it's a 40 and an expensive silk handkerchief, which, by the way, the fact that it was an expensive silk handkerchief is the reason that the Molotov cocktail didn't work the way it should have. Yeah, apparently fancy silk stuff doesn't burn in the same way. I don't know. The arson investigator will explain. Let's let him do it. The bottle used in the arson incident was a 40-ounce Old English 800 malt liquor bottle. It was filled with gasoline, and the silky accessory was used as a wick. Jimenez testified. He says, in my opinion, this was a targeted attack. The fabric inside the bottle was a silky material, which ultimately made the bomb less effective and limited the damage to the car. Look at you, Diddy. Look at you, Diddy. Your bougie ways made you not quite the gangster you wanted to be. Your bougie ways. The fabric inside the bottle was a silky material. The fire smoldered out and didn't cause damage that was intended. Jimenez testified. All right, there you go. All right, no, he was gone, so we got the two cops in here early. Then they took a break for lunch. And then after, actually, no, I think this happened just before lunch. Yeah. Oh, no, this is what happened. That's right. Just before lunch, we had this occur. So let me go back to Inspector Jimenez, the arson inspector. He said, in my opinion, this was a targeted event. The fabric inside the bottle was a, quote, silky material, which ultimately made the bomb less effective and limited the damage to the car. The fire smoldered out and didn't cause the damage that it was intended to do, Jimenez testified. Okay, so right after he did that, boom, there was some drama. The defense, Your Honor, we object, and we move for a mistrial. Yes, based on something that Jimenez said, the defense wanted the entire trial to be over. Woo! I was a little bit nervous. I was like, what? What's this now? Combs' lawyer, Alexandra Shapiro, called for a mistrial in the middle of testimony by Fire Inspector Lance Jimenez after he told jurors 2 fingerprints taken off the door at Cudi's home after the bad boy records founder allegedly broke in were destroyed by the LAPD months later. All right, so one of the things that arson investigator Jimenez said was they lifted some fingerprints off the house, but I don't know, something happened a couple of months later. They just disappeared because America, because rich people can make things disappear. You ever seen Ray Donovan? Huh? You know what a cleaner is? Well, Diddy's got a cleaner, I'm sure. And those fingerprints, they just disappeared. As was testified to by Los Angeles Fire Department arson investigator Jimenez. The fire smoldered out, didn't cause the damage. Combs' lawyer, Alexander Shapiro called for a mistrial in the middle of the testimony by Jimenez after he told jurors about the 2 fingerprints that had been taken off the door. It says after the jury was sent out, so the jury's got to be sent out. Right, you gotta be like, she's like, I object, I want a mistrial. And then the judge is like, calm down. All right, the jury moves out, and now they're gonna have this out. She objected to the notion being floated that there was some corruption on the part of the LA Fire Department's arson investigation that then sort of suggested that maybe Diddy was pulling some strings and had done some things. Diddy's attorney, didn't want the jury hearing that, even though that's not what was said. But if you read between the lines, you might be able to infer, am I using that properly, that was what was suggested. Combs' lawyer, Alexandra Shapiro, called for a mistrial in the middle of testimony. She said that she objected to 2 fingerprints. She objected to Lance Jimenez's testimony of 2 fingerprints being taken off the door at Cudi's home. And she objected to his testimony that they were, quote, destroyed by LAPD months later. After the jury was sent out of the courtroom, Shapiro said prosecutors were unfairly trying to plant the idea with the jurors that Mr. Combs had something to do with the destruction of evidence. But Shapiro responded by saying her questions of Jimenez were asked in, the response was that the questions were asked in good faith. Judge Subramanian denied the motion and decided to simply tell the jury that part of Jimenez's testimony should be disregarded, which I always love. I always love that in court cases. When a judge goes, well, okay, jury, you didn't just hear that, okay? Let's just all live in a universe where you didn't just hear that, and we'll pretend like this is fair. Capiche? Capiche. You didn't just hear that. I mean, come on. What does that mean? All right, so now we got celebrity stylist Deonte Nash. She got up there. It's not a she. It's a dude. That's right. I'm sure he was fabulous. I wish this was on TV. I'm sure Deonte Nash would have been fabulous, become a big star, but it's not on TV. Instead, we just have to imagine what Deonte Nash is like. Celebrity stylist Deonte Nash recounted the time that he and his close friend, Cassie Ventura, went to a gay club in L.A. This was around 2013. They went with British songstress and Cheetah Girls singer Adrienne Balin Houghton. Ventura, in the middle of this night out with Cheetah Girls in the gay club, in the middle of this, Ventura got a call from Puffy, whom Nash, remember, this is Deonte Nash, she's the stylist, or he, God, why do I keep saying she? Because everything about him seems feminine. That's why. I'm sorry, I'm a middle-aged white guy. What do you want with me? Ventura got a call in the middle of all this from Combs, whom Nash heard on speakerphone tell Cassie she better bring her ass back to my house, Nash testified. So she's out there running around with her gay friends. Diddy's at home. It's Friday night. There's nothing on TV. He's got no party to go to. He's a little horny. So he just calls his woman. He's like, get my woman over here. She better get her ass here. I mean, he's a jerk off. We know this. Again, these are all things that we're like, oh, Diddy doesn't seem like a nice guy. No, he seems like a complete jerk off, but he also doesn't seem yet like this global conspirator that the prosecution would have us believe. All right. Ventura got a call from Combs, said Ventura said, she better get her ass to my house right away, Nash testified. Ventura, quote, started to panic. She just packed her stuff and went to his house, Nash said. The stylist who worked with Combs from 2008 to 2018, 10 years she worked for him. Must have been hell. 10 years of absolute hell, I'm sure. She said that this was one of 2 times that the Bad Boy Records founder told Nash and Ventura that they needed permission from him before going out. All right, now that's interesting. That plays into the controlling. That plays into the prisoner narrative that the prosecution needs to get across. The stylist, she's up there. She's saying, yeah, a bunch of times we were told that we needed Diddy's permission before we could go out or before we could hang out. All right, so that's interesting. She also testified, celebrity stylist Deonte Nash, she testified that she witnessed herself Diddy beating the crap out of Cassie. So now we've got, I don't know, I stopped keeping track. We've got at least 5 or 6 different instances of people saying that they saw Diddy knocking around Cassie. This wasn't something that he did exclusively behind doors. He did it in mixed company. People are testifying to it. Celebrity stylist Deonte Nash testified that while she was with Ventura at her apartment as she packed for Drake's OVO festival back in 2013, Nash, other stylists, and another alleged Combs victim, Mia, more on Mia in a moment, witnessed an enraged Combs rough up Ventura for not answering her phone. Diddy burst into the room screaming, "Bitch, didn't I tell you to answer your phone?" Nash recounted Combs saying. He then, quote, grabbed her by the hair, pulled her off the couch, and started beating her, the stylist said. Ventura previously testified about the incident, telling the jury Combs beat her because he was mad she fell asleep on the couch and hadn't started packing yet. Yes, we heard this story. This was just one of the stories, one of the incidents that Cassie said where he just, beat the shit out of me for no reason. All right, so now it's being tied together. We have a witness who was there, who is corroborating everything that Cassie said a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago now, I think. And it doesn't necessarily help, again, the prosecution's overcharge, but it does begin to suggest that there is a pattern that possibly the jury could define as an imprisonment. That, yes, maybe it's not as simple as she could have just broken up with him and left at any point. Maybe it's not that simple. Maybe we need to have a more detailed painting shown to us over the course of the next few weeks. And again, I'm just going to say, this is the second day in a row where I am starting to see the prosecution's case maybe not be made, but at least begin to be formed where you start to see what they're going for. Bitch, didn't I tell you to answer your phone? He grabbed her by the hair, pulled her off the couch, and started hitting her. Ventura had previously testified about this incident, saying that he was mad at her because she fell asleep on the couch. All right, so Cassie said, what did he do it for? And she's like, because I fell asleep. And then you asked the stylist, what did he do it for? And she's like, well, because he said she wasn't answering the phone. Well, one doesn't negate the other. If you fell asleep, you're not answering your phone. So there is no inconsistency there. Jurors were shown photos of a gash on Ventura's left eyebrow after she cut it on the corner of the bed when Combs allegedly threw her down hard. She had to style her hair to cover the wound. So apparently she had a gash that was big enough that she had to change her hairstyle, or so her stylist has testified. Stylist Deonte Nash. I keep thinking of this person as a woman, but it's a man. Nash said that Diddy got violent with him on a few occasions. So it's not just the women that he's knocking around. He's also knocking around the hairstylists. Yeah, I don't know if that's. I don't know if he's knocking around D-ball. What do we learn the name of his big giant security guard? Wasn't it D-ball? I don't know, 8-track, something like that. I don't know. Nash said that Diddy got violent with him on a few occasions, including once in 2013 when Ventura was shooting a music video. Combs threw me on the car and started choking me out, stylist Deonte Nash recalled. The rapper was angry at me for going out and, quote, wilding it up with Ventura. So Diddy beat the crap out of Deonte Nash because Deonte Nash was taking Cassie out to gay clubs and stuff. So he beat him up. Nash said during his time styling for Ventura and Combs for roughly a decade that he'd helped, quote, hide Cassie from him too many times to count. They would hide out in hotels and Combs would blow everyone's phones up and threaten everybody to try and get her to come home, Nash told jurors. Well, I got to be honest. This just really sounds to me like just a bad relationship. A bad relationship where I don't know what Diddy was hoping to get out of it other than just a really beautiful woman that he can control and have do whatever he wants whenever. I got a pretty good idea of what Cassie was trying to get out of it. All right, that's it. That's all we got for today's trial. We had 3 people. We had the arson investigator. We had the LAPD officer who responded to Kid Cudi's home break-in. And we heard from Deonte Nash, who was the stylist for both Cassie and Diddy. We did not have time today to hear from Mia. Mia will probably be on tomorrow. Tomorrow, starting out, we're going to get more of Deonte Nash. Deonte Nash, who was the stylist we just heard from today. That person is going to take the stand to start tomorrow, day 12, cross-examination of Deonte Nash. So that should be interesting. Let's see if after a day where the prosecution seemed to make a lot of headway, at least with their charges, let's see if it can't be followed up by the defense just knocking that all down again. That's how tomorrow will start. Also, we're promised tomorrow that we're going to get to hear from Mia. Now, I told you, I just mentioned Mia's name a couple of minutes ago. I told you to put a pin in it because we're going to talk about Mia. Mia is expected to be another bombshell witness. Mia is not her real name. This person is not allowing her real name to be known. She'll be testifying as Mia. But Mia was also Diddy's girlfriend at the time of Cassie. Now, this could be problematic because, again, if we are to believe, if it becomes the default belief in the courtroom that Diddy had Kim Porter, his number one, Kim Porter was the mother of his children. And as a number of people have testified, Kim Porter had a special place in that universe because she was the mother of his children. So if we believe that it was Kim Porter and then there was Cassie, who was the prisoner, who he destroyed and all that, now we're learning that at the same time as Cassie, there was another girlfriend named Mia, and they knew about each other. I don't know. Mia is coming for the prosecution. She is going to be offering testimony that the prosecution believes is going to help them. I don't know. I can't wait to hear the cross-examination of Mia, because that's where I think we're going to get a whole bunch of information about the pecking order of the women in Diddy's life. And this case, the prosecution's entire case, rests on us believing that Cassie was so important in Diddy's life that he wasn't willing to give up anything for her, that he was going to control her and own her and imprison her and would never let her go. That is the contention of the prosecution. If the defense can make it seem like she was just another chick and Diddy got away with what he could get away with because she wouldn't break up with him, she wouldn't leave, he kept doing all this stuff and she kept hanging out, the defense will then ask the question, why? I wonder why that is. And I think we've got the answer. It's because she wanted Diddy to make her a star. That is my take on Cassie. Tomorrow, I have a whole new take on Mia. I can't wait to meet her. Mia takes the stand tomorrow for day 12 of Diddy or Didn't He? Sean Diddy Combs on trial in New York. Like, follow, subscribe. Radio Misfits. Oh, they do some fun things there on Radio Misfits. You can follow any number of the shows there. If you want to watch the show, you can find us on YouTube or also Facebook. Radio Misfits. YouTube, Radio Misfits. Facebook. You can watch the video presentation or just regular, like a podcast. Check out my talk show. Every day I sit here 2:00 and I give you a talk show unlike anything that you'll hear here in America. Certainly unlike any talk radio you'll hear on the old-timey radio. I don't do politics. I do hot topics. I do lifestyle. I do guy talk. I do relationship talk. Every day at 2:00 right here on Radio Misfits. It's The Rant with me, Pugs Moran, right here, radiomisfits.com. Like, follow, subscribe every day at 2:00. Guys, I think that's going to be it. Thank you for joining me. Be sure and come back tomorrow as we find out all the good stuff that Mia has to say. Mia takes the stand tomorrow. I am Pugs Moran. We are Diddy or Didn't He on radiomisfits.com.